Good morning. Go ahead and call to order the November 6, 2018 meeting of the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners. At this time, it's my pleasure to invite Pastor Alex Pappas up to the podium. He's with Oceans Unite Christian Center. He will give us the invocation. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Tim Zork. We normally start our meetings with a moment of silent reflection. And as we do that this morning, I'd ask that you keep some thoughts and prayers for the family of long-term public servant, property appraiser David Nolte, who passed early this morning. And with that, would everyone please rise and we'll have a moment of silent reflection.
And so, Father, we come before you this morning in the precious name of your Son, Jesus. We come with thanksgiving and with praise before you. And Lord, we give you honor for everything that you are doing, even in our county, in our city, Lord, and even in our nation. We just give you all the glory and the praise, and we rely on you. We trust in you for everything. Father, this morning we want to give you thanks for what you're doing here in Vero Beach and in our county. And we just ask that your will be done. Your word says that we should pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we pray for our county this morning that your will be done. Lord, you know that we pray every week for these men and women that have been placed in seats of authority. We pray for them every week, Lord. And we ask this morning that you will give them wisdom, that you will speak to them clearly, and that your will be done in this region. We also pray, Father, for all the first responders in this region. We pray for their protection. We pray, Lord, that you would lead them and guide them, give them wisdom in everything they do. Father, that you would bring them home safe every day. All these servants that serve in our city, in our county, Lord, that you would just cover them, that you would hide them from the enemy, that you would strengthen them and give them wisdom. And once again, we just declare over this region that your will be done. All the glory, the honor, and the praise will go to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Very inspiring. Thank you. Commissioners, additions, deletions to the agenda. Commissioner Zork, would you like to move your item up to the public discussion item?
Yes, that would be actually to 14E1 to 5C after the tie-in, after the Adoption Awareness Month, and 14E2 to 10B1.
Okay, so that's 14E1 to 5C and 14E2 to 10B1. Commissioners, Commissioner Flesher is not with us this morning. He's dealing with some family issues. We will go ahead and proceed with the agenda. The county administrator did relate to me this morning that if he cannot make it later in the meeting, that Commissioner Flesher would like to participate in the three utility discussion items, and that would be regarding the septic to sewer policy, the surface water supply, and the water and wastewater rate study. What I would suggest we do is we'll go ahead and proceed, and if we get to that point, if there's anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak on that, we'd be glad to hear their testimony today, since they've made the effort, but that we would table those items to the following meeting until Commissioner Flesher can be part of the conversation. And if that's okay with the commissioners, that's what I would suggest we do it on that.
Move agenda as amended with your suggestion.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Slurry, second by Commissioner Zork. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 4-0. That takes us to presentations and proclamations. The first is a presentation designating November 11th, 2018 as Veterans Day. And we have Commissioner Adams will be presenting that. And we have some folks from the Veterans Council here. Come on up, gentlemen, please. Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. And it's my pleasure to read a proclamation designating the day of November 11th, 2018 as Veterans Day. Whereas on May 13th, 1938, Congress approved an act designating November 11th as Armistice Day, commemorating the end of World War I and paying tribute to the heroes of that war. And whereas on June 1st, 1954, Congress approved an act changing the name of Armistice Day to Veterans Day in order to also pay tribute to the veterans of World War II and veterans of all wars who have contributed so much to the preservation of our nation. And whereas over 15,000 veterans of all wars presently reside in Indian River County, which is host to 25 veteran organizations. And whereas veterans residing in Indian River County, individually and collectively as members of veteran organizations, contribute in many ways to the welfare and betterment of the social, cultural, and economic life of Indian River County. And whereas the Indian River County Veterans Council consists of representatives from 25 city and county veteran organizations annually observe Veterans Day, as well as all patriotic observance days by holding ceremonies at Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary in Vero Beach. And whereas Indian River County and some of its prominent citizens of the past and present have established Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary as a place to commemorate and pay tribute to all veterans of all wars. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners, Indian River County, Florida, that November 11, 2018 be designated as Veterans Day, and the board encourages all citizens to fly the American flag, to pay tribute to all veterans living and deceased, and to attend the Veterans Day service at 8:45 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Island Sanctuary on Saturday, November 10th, 2018. Adopted the 6th day of November, 2018, and signed by all 5 county commissioners. Welcome, gentlemen. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you have going on?
Sure.
Don't be shy, Marty.
You ever known him to be that way?
I have been known to be shy and unaccustomed to public speaking. There are 2 ceremonies. There's also one, you mentioned the one there. And I always tell people, bring a chair, bring an umbrella, because we'll have, and it's not for the rain. It doesn't rain on Veterans Day. It's for the sun. So we will have the ceremony on Memorial Island on the 10th. Sebastian is having theirs at their park on the 11th at 1 o'clock. So there's 2 different ceremonies. The good news for all of you folks is you won't have to rush from ours to Sebastian. Don't need, well, the sheriff's not here. I can make that comment. Don't have to turn the lights on and dash to get there. So we're having those 2 events, and there are numerous other small events that people go to. As you know, John Jetson always puts on an event, a Vietnam guy like I am, and he does a great job. So we support probably 5 or 6 different events other than our major one. Part of our event out on the island is going to be a dedication for the Gold Star Mothers as well, and Tony Young is running that one. So there's a number of things going on that day. We certainly hope that all of you can make it. You have anything?
No, I think you've covered it all very well. Thank you.
So far, so good. So thank you all for the proclamation. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Marty.
And Marty, just to clarify, November 10th at 8:45 at Veterans Island, and
Yes.
then November 11th, we'll be up in Sebastian.
Yep,
So we'll get to have two different ceremonies.
yep.
And Marty, I just have to comment, we were talking a little bit earlier about the Navy SEAL Museum had their annual muster over the weekend, and my wife and I and some friends were down there on Saturday, and the story to tell is this. Bill Penny, the CEO and president of Marine Bank, was there with his Uncle Jack. And Uncle Jack is a World War II veteran. I forget if he's 91 or 93 years old. And Uncle Jack had this biggest grin on his face because so many people were coming up to him to thank him for his service and making him feel like a hero again,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
was really amazing just to see how many people were coming up and talking to him and how it really just made his whole, day to
It
be there and
really-
be recognized.
It
And
really does. It brightens up. One of the reasons we have the store in the mall was primarily built for World War II guys to talk about the stories that they wouldn't tell their families. And a young man brings his father in there. It was World War II. Father meets a veteran, starts talking about what happened, and the son goes, "I've never heard that before."
right, yeah.
So the whole thing, the military event and the muster is a great one. And normally it used to be always on Veterans Day, and I think they've moved it up because it was really good. I was there Friday night and in the pouring rain. And I thought all the Navy guys would run out and go, "It's raining," and they all went to the beer tent instead.
Yeah, those dang Navy swabbies, what were they doing?
Yeah, well, we military do things for a reason.
Well, just thank you to all the veterans here in the county and certainly the board. We love the fact we have so many veterans here and love working with you all and just greatly appreciate the service you've given to your country.
We appreciate the support you've given us. They, even in the worst of times, you have supported the veterans and our buses and the people that do that 100%. You have been exceptional on doing that.
I can't help but believe that I think our veterans have served us in a lot worse times. And we'll just go with that, Marty. But thank you all very much. And come on up, Marty. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Marty.
You guys want a picture?
Absolutely.
Of course.
We're going to be in the
It's almost a
I'm
wanna
next
call
to
it
the lady.
missing plane formation here or something.
I wanted to stand out. Great to see you, Marty. With
Yeah.
the red. Thank you for coming down. Very bright.
Thanks again, guys.
The blinky lights.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is a proclamation designating November 15, 2018 as National Philanthropy Day. Commissioner Slaughter will be presenting this, and I think we have a whole bunch of folks here, so all of you for the proclamation, come on up to the podium, please. And
Yeah, I'm part of that too.
why am I not surprised, Marty? Just who's going to be your primary spokesperson? Great. Well, I'll have Commissioner Slaughter read the proclamation, and then we'll be glad to hear from you, okay?
Thank you,
Commissioner
Mr. Chairman.
Fleury.
Thank you very much. Before reading the proclamation, I'd just like to note that this board has long recognized that government certainly can't do it all, and that strong civil society is necessary if we're going to have the community that we really want to live and work in, and that Indian River County is blessed with a very strong philanthropic group, which is clearly represented today. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for all your efforts, not just today, but during the entire year. And with that, I'm very happy to read this proclamation designating November 15th, 2018 as National Philanthropy Day. Whereas philanthropy is a uniquely American tradition, and our American nonprofit sector is the model for countries around the world. And whereas the history of American philanthropy is filled with the names of the earliest Americans, and their efforts spawned universities, free public libraries, homes for widows and orphans, and volunteer fire departments, to name a few. And whereas in 2017, Americans contributed more than $410 billion to 1.5 million charities registered with the Internal Revenue Service and contributed more than 8 billion volunteer hours to nonprofit organizations. And whereas today the nonprofit sector affects nearly every citizen in one way or another, from museums and concerts, school-sponsored day trips, little leagues and other groups that enrich our youth, to social science services agencies that provide food, clothing, housing, and training to those less fortunate. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County that November 15th, 2018 be designated as National Philanthropy Day in Indian River County, and the board urges all its citizens to recognize the tradition of philanthropy as it continues to improve and enhance the lives of all by promoting the common good. Signed by all 5 members of the Board of County Commissioners and adopted the 6th day of November 2015. Thank you, and we'd love to hear what your Philanthropy Day is going to bring us this year.
Thank you very much. We have a celebration on November 14th, and it's an annual celebration where we recognize the importance of philanthropy and all of the people in our community who make this community a great place to live, work, and raise a family. And so we are very excited. This year we have 27 honorees, and sad to say that we are completely sold out already. We have a max capacity of 300 at the Vero Beach Museum of Art, and we are sad to say, but also excited to say that we have a full house that night. And we have so many wonderful people in our community who help all of our organizations. And I have a large committee here. Our chairs, Bev Smith is our National Philanthropy Day chair, and our co-chair is Jessica Schmidt. And then our committee members, Julia Keenan, Tracy Siegel, Maureen Nicolacci, Anne Marie McChrystal. Kathy Kissman is on our board, and Marty Zickert, Shannon Bowman, and Carol Canarak. And I'm telling you, it takes a village. We couldn't do this event without everybody, and this is only half of the committee. So I just want to thank you for recognizing the importance of philanthropy in our community, and I want to thank all of the committee members and board members for everything that they do for this community.
Well, I know that the most difficult task your community has is actually picking the one winner out of so many great nominees, because we do have so many people that contribute here. And when I talk about the county to out-of-town people or people coming, that's one of the first things I talk about is the philanthropic community we have here, and how it, and it's not just the real, big things like the theater, the Museum of Art, but we have a lot of folks that, work with Safe Space and the food banks, and a lot of other things that maybe not be as glamorous, but are just as critical and important to the entire community. And as Commissioner Solari said in his opening remarks, you all do it much better than we could ever think government could do. So we greatly appreciate all the efforts you all do to make this a wonderful, giving community. So.
Really think of it as a great celebration to honor everybody. And again, there are really no winners and losers. I mean, everybody deserves to be honored.
Exactly, yeah. Well, great. Well, come on up, lady.
Hello, Cal. Good to see you. Again, Mr.
Hey, again.
Good morning, thanks for coming.
Let's find a way to weave in everything.
Marty goes where the ladies are.
Marty, good to see you again.
Yes.
Good morning.
Hey, good to see you.
For joining us.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
Thank
So what are we expecting?
Thank you guys.
Oh, very, very close to Christmas. Wow.
Thank you.
How do we get Maureen in the picture instead of back there?
Bob? Bob.
I want the prop there, so open it up. And we'll
Open it up,
we'll
yeah.
have Jessica and Bev, since they're the co-chairs of NPD, the event, and have it sideways. There you go. Okay, thank you very much.
On three. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. It's all hers.
All right, and I am 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 3, 2, 1. Great.
All right.
Look at
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not in the next one.
Well, I don't know, Maureen, you might want to stick around. They might invite you anyway. Next is a proclamation designating the month of November 2018 as National Adoption Awareness Month. I will be presenting this, and we have hopefully Miss Jamie Bond from the Business Development and Community Relationships Place of Hope is here to receive this. Good morning. If you have anybody else, bring them on up. Good. Good morning. I'll read the proclamation, and if you'd like to make a few comments, we'd love to hear from you. There's a proclamation designating the month of November 2018 as National Adoption Awareness Month. Whereas Place of Hope, the largest and fastest growing foster care organization in the Treasure Coast and Communities Connected for Kids, have upheld our legacy of transforming the lives of children and families. And whereas there are currently 1,123 children being served by the child welfare system across the Treasure Coast, with 206 children in Indian River County. And whereas there are 53 children awaiting adoption without an identified home, 20 from Indian River County. And whereas Place of Hope and Communities Connected for Kids work diligently with the Department of Children and Families to ensure that every child has a forever family, evidenced by the 30 families receiving foster to adoption assistance in the Treasure Coast. And whereas children waiting for adoptive parents and families who have adopted these children require and deserve community and agency support. And whereas Place of Hope and Communities Connected for Kids, along with community partners, embrace opportunities that can potentially change the way society cares for children and youth. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the month of November 2018 be designated as National Adoption Awareness Month in Indian River County. In honor of this event, we encourage community agencies, religious organizations, businesses, and others to celebrate adoption, honor families that grow through adoption, further an awareness of the changes and issues in adoption, and focus attention on those children who live in the shadow of an uncertain future while they await forever families. Adopted the 6th day of November 2018, endorsed by all 5 county commissioners. Good morning, welcome, and tell us a little bit about what y'all are doing.
Well, good morning. Thank you so much. As you mentioned, we are so privileged to serve over 340 children in the Treasure Coast since January of 2015, and we have witnessed 30 adoptions, which are 30 children who now have a forever family who, without that adoption, without that foster and adoption family, would not have that opportunity. We are, as you mentioned, the largest children's organization in the Treasure Coast. We currently have 5 licensed homes of the 20 that are in Indian River County. 80%, roughly 80% of the children are placed out of county. So it's very important that the community rally together with CC Kids and other organizations to provide these opportunities for our children and our families. So your support is truly, truly appreciated. And I have with me Lily, who is our program coordinator. She just recently got promoted, so I'm getting used to her title. Our program coordinator for the Treasure Coast, and Vicki, who actually is brand new to our team, so she's very excited to be here. So we're truly blessed and honored to be here this morning. Thank you.
Well, great, and thank you for all you do for the children and youth and finding those forever homes.
Absolutely, thank you.
Come on up.
Good morning, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming down. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, absolutely.
And then just tell the clerk your name, so she'll have it.
Okay.
Perfect.
You want to step to your right, a couple more steps, and we'll get, there you go, perfect.
Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, what, you want us to be lopsided?
1, 2, 3. 1 more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
The next is a proclamation designating the month of November 2018 as, I'm sorry, Commissioner Zork.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Jamie, if you could come back up to the podium. For those in the community, on November the 15th, there's going to be a local kind of an informational opportunity of what is it like to consider becoming a foster parent. We have some groups that are going to send a representative from their group or their church to kind of information gather. My wife and I have been past foster parents, and it's a wonderful experience. And as with your own kids, it comes with its own challenges and excitements and rewards and all the other things that go along with normal parenting. You can have them sometimes for a day or two, or in some cases, ours we had for a year. Every situation is different. But this is going to be an open, free community event held at the United Way. Place of Hope is actually going to put on the program itself. We wanted to give places where people can reach out for information. They can call my office here at 772-226-1492, or you can go to placeofhope.com on the website, and there's information there as well. Had some great meetings with some of the community leaders over the last week, and again, trying to people to understand right now we have a shortage of beds, that if for some reason a child needs to be placed into a foster care environment, there is no place in Indian River County for them to go. So they're going to not just be removed from their home, they're going to be removed from the entire county, and in some cases even removed out of the 19th Circuit area, and they may end up 2 or 3 counties away. So that just adds to the trauma of the whole event. So we're really trying to grow our number of licensed foster care beds, and this is one step to do this, and I'm going to work with Place of Hope in trying to have a kind of a quarterly meeting like this for community outreach, and then they can go into the normal class opportunities that the Place of Hope adds. And if you would mind touching base on just a little bit on the other operations that you have in St. Lucie. That's where some of your classroom spaces, but you also have space here at United Way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, we have, each month we have 3 orientation classes that we lead in Palm Beach Gardens, and one in Stewart and one in St. Lucie County. And as we grow up here, and as I mentioned, we expanded up here in 2015, January 2015. Naturally, since we were birthed out of Palm Beach County, it was a natural progression for us to start in Martin and then move our way up to St. Lucie, and then now up to Indian River. Although Indian River was our first licensed family and our first adoption, which is kind of cool, our saturation primarily has been Martin and St. Lucie counties. So as we're growing up here, we don't have a monthly or quarterly orientation class for our Indian River families, because although the need is great, the engagement isn't as high as we would like it to be. So this will be a wonderful opportunity for us to start that process. And once we do get some more community engagement, we would love to be able to have more monthly or quarterly orientation processes, and then turn those into foster parent classes, which is a 21-hour course. And that's something that everyone will learn about when they attend to the orientation. We do have an office in St. Lucie County, in the Christ Fellowship Building. They've been so gracious to grant us that space for free, just like the United Way here in Indian River County has been extremely gracious in granting us a 2-year office space completely free as well. And then we're currently building in our Hope Sound office.
Well, great. We look forward to sharing the word, and many people in the community just don't realize how great the need is and what happens if there's not a licensed bed to place that child in, and what they have to go through. So I'd like to have more beds than demand, and then also at the same time work with the other community leaders of how do we reduce the need to have children removed, and that's a whole nother process that we have. But thank you very much, and I'll look forward to seeing you again on November 15th at 6 o'clock.
Absolutely. Hope to see everyone.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. My apologies, Commissioner Zork.
No
I forgot
problem.
we had moved that up. Thank you for reminding me. So now we'll proceed to the next proclamation, which is designating the month of November 2018 as Alpha-1 Antitrypsin Deficiency Awareness Month. Commissioner Zork will be presenting this, and Lisa Kozak. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
I'll have Commissioner Zork read this, and then you can fill us in. Commissioner Zork.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome this morning. This is a proclamation designating the month of November 2018 as Alpha-1 Antitrypsin Deficiency Alpha-1 Awareness Month. Whereas Alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, Alpha-1, is the most common and serious hereditary disorder in the world and can result in life-threatening lung disease in adults and liver disease in both children and adults. And whereas Alpha-1 has been identified in nearly all population and ethnic groups, it is estimated there are 1 in every 2,500 Americans have Alpha-1, and up to 6% of Caucasians in the U.S. carry a single deficient gene and may pass the gene on to their children. And whereas Alpha-1 is widely underdiagnosed and misdiagnosed, and fewer than 10% of those predicted to have Alpha-1 have been diagnosed. And it often takes an average of 5 doctors in 7 years from the time symptoms appear before diagnosis is made, which can be done using a simple blood test. Whereas it is important to increase awareness and detection of this serious hereditary and misdiagnosed disorder. And whereas during the month of November, a nationwide awareness campaign will take place throughout the country to educate the public as well as the medical community on alpha-1 detection and treatment for those affected by this condition. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners in Indian River County, Florida, that the month of November 2018 be designated excuse me, as Alpha-1 Antitrypsin Deficiency Awareness Month, adopted this 6th day of November 2018, signed by all 5 county commissioners. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for doing this for us. First, I have a question for you. I wasn't prepared to do this, and I'm going to cry. But how many of you heard of it before you got it on your desk?
Nope.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it till 2007 when I was diagnosed. I used to live in Vail, just outside of Vail, Colorado, and first thing they thought was, heart catheterization or a heart issue, and did a heart catheterization, and I was blessed to be able to go down to National Jewish Hospital, and they diagnosed it there after 2 days of testing, and it, I can go on for hours and hours and hours about this, so I'd like to thank my friends that are here. I got Robert, this is my infusion nurse, Nancy. This is Mary Gilmartin. She's was very integral at National Jewish Hospital and dealing with Alpha-1 patients. And I have Dennis here, and he's coming down from Melbourne. And I have Roberto Balderos from the foundation. It actually stems from the Vikings. It's a gene, it's a misfolded gene, and it's traps trypsin in your liver, or it doesn't produce it. And it happens to be a protein that protects the inside of your lungs. So if you don't have it, you're unprotected. Whether you've smoked or not, we are about 3 to 4% of the COPD population, which would put us at about 100,000, but we've only got 10,000 diagnosed. It's one of the #1 reason infants get liver transplants. So it manifests usually in an infant or with many adults in the early 40s, such as my story. But I really greatly appreciate getting the awareness out there, and look at, I've educated you guys on it. And please, alpha1.org, get all the information you want. If you've had undiagnosed asthma, or asthma that doesn't respond to normal treatments, or regular bronchitis, pneumonias, anything like that should be tested, even in your teens. Had I been diagnosed early, the infusions would have held it at bay, but right now I'm sitting at about 25% lung function. And then for some, it ends up to be a lung transplant. So anyway, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. I don't think any of us were aware of it, and we're very glad to bring this to public awareness, and hopefully that things will go well for you all. So
Thank you.
thank you all for coming this morning. Thank you for sharing your story. Okay. Thank you for coming.
On 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you all, and good luck with everything. Thank you for sharing your story.
Have a great day.
Moving on to the agenda, there's no minutes to approve. Informational items. Commissioners, any comments on the informational items? Hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Commissioners, does anyone wish to pull a consent agenda item for additional discussion? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like a consent agenda item to be pulled for additional discussion? Seeing none, commissioners. I'll second that. We have a motion from Commissioner Zork, second by myself. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 4-0. The no constitutional officers items, we move to public items. There's no public hearings. Under public discussion items, the first is a request to speak from Franklin Trips Nelson, United Against Poverty, regarding a project update and request for support from the Board of County Commissioners. Good morning and welcome. Your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. I had the honor of visiting with you about a month ago, an early October meeting, and sharing some information about our organization and our new Up Center project, so I'll keep it very brief. But we were founded here in Vero Beach 15 years ago. Our organization uses a hand up as opposed to a handout approach, and our purpose is to inspire and empower those in poverty to achieve economic self-sufficiency. And for reference, 98 individuals in Indian River County that were associated with our programs lifted themselves from poverty last year. We have more demand for our services that we can meet right now based on facility limitations. So our plan is to purchase and retrofit and become your close neighbors. Our new facility is going to be just east of the County Administration Center in the former SFS Distribution Center. And once we are consolidated into our new facility, we're going to be able to triple the number of students in our workforce development program. We're going to be able to double the member share grocery program access and also increase our collaboration with partner organizations and agencies that help our neighbors in need. We have been working on this project as a one-time campaign. We were able to purchase and close in cash on our new building in June of this year, and we are well on our way towards meeting the financial needs necessary to fund the retrofit of the new facility. I visited with you in early October to ask for your consideration of supporting us with an application to the state's Job Growth Grant Fund, and we're grateful for the support that we received. We found another opportunity that we think is a great fit for our organization in this project, whereas JP Morgan and Chase have announced that they're going to put up $500 million in a program called Advancing Cities. And this is an opportunity to receive individual grant awards of up to $3 million. The applications must be led by nonprofit organizations. Proposals are due on November 30th. And they are speak very strongly that they're seeking collaboration within and across sectors. So we think our organization and our project is a very good fit. Our new Up Center, as mentioned, is a center of collaborative resources, not only for United Against Poverty, but other agencies. The services that we provide in our center addresses areas of focus for the Advancing City initiatives, such as employment security and access to services, and we have strong private sector backing in place for the project. Our grant applications will require a letter of recommendation from local government, so we are respectfully requesting this board provide a letter of support that mentions the sustainability that you help our organization with through your grants, the public transportation through Go Line that you provide so that individuals have access to our facilities. And then finally, we intend to create an advisory board once our new facility is up and running so that we can collectively discuss community needs and adjust programming within the Up Center as community needs change, and we would love to have your participation at the county level as a member of that board.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Snelson?
I do.
Commissioner Adams.
Is that advisory board going to be in addition to the current boards you have? Because I know you have an overall board, and then you have a board for this area and a board for the Orlando area, and now you will be creating an additional board?
That's correct. This would be different than a corporate governance board. This would be a board representing not only United Against Poverty, but the public sector, as well as participants that are in the program, Indian River State College, et cetera. So it would be one of the projects that's going to be within the new center is going to be a wellness center. We are working with the hospital district, Treasure Coast Community Health, and VNA to launch this project. And so community health needs would be a component of it, community needs that are identified through the county's needs assessment, as well as the partners that are participating in the organization would have a voice in that board.
Okay, because I do have concerns about duplication of services. We have a lot of nonprofits in the community working on different areas. So that, you know, I just want to make sure that that's not happening. Jason, do we have a vetting process for these kinds of requests? Do we look at any, because this seems to be, you seem to be asking for a little bit more than just a letter of support, because you want us to specifically talk about sustainability and transportation. And I haven't seen the grant application, so I want to make sure that whatever we're supporting, because the information in the backup is just the grant outline. It's not the actual submittal.
That's true. The grant application hasn't been drafted yet. But the three things that I think that would be helpful to the success of the application, the county currently provides transportation services through GO Line to our facility. We have had the benefit of receiving funding from the county through an annual grant application, and then consideration of the county helping on this advisory board, I think would be helpful to the cause as far as a letter of support.
Because I know that UP is one of the only nonprofits that works in the income area as identified in the United Way pillars. So, and I think that what you guys do is wonderful, but as we move forward, I just want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence because this is a little bit different than being asked for a letter of support for the DEO grant, in my opinion.
I'm very much with Commissioner Adams on this. I'm very happy to explain what we do with transportation. I've been long a supporter of the GO Line for reasons which would be consistent with your mission. But again, on the health issues, we work closely with the health department and with their area in Gifford. So before going forward, I'd like to know if there is any duplication and any sort of stepping on toes. And the idea of having somebody else on an advisory board, I don't think that's a good step for us to go. I think that myself, we've got too many boards and committees already, and I think our time is stretched. I like to point out that we have 50 different boxes of responsibility on our organizational chart, and there are lots like this type of advisory board which aren't on it, so that it makes our job very, very difficult, if not really impossible, to be performed in a rational fashion. So I'm happy to support the letter of support, but certainly not a couple of the items without more information, and certainly I doubt I could support the advisory board.
So what I would recommend, maybe Commissioner Zork, is to work with Mr. Snelson on maybe a draft letter of what they're looking for and bring it back to us on either the 13th or 20th. You said the end of the month was the deadline?
The application is due on the 30th of November.
Okay, so.
We could bring it back for
So with a little bit more detail or a rough draft of what they're looking for in the letter of support. And then I think we could work with that and move that forward. As far as the advisory board, I don't think you're asking this to be an official county advisory board, are you?
No.
Okay, so it really doesn't matter to me if y'all want to form an advisory board or not, and if a commissioner wants to serve on it, it would be on their voluntary basis. I don't think we would make it a formal appointment of the county commission, but certainly,
I would be happy to support something like that.
if Commissioner Zork wants to volunteer to serve on it on his time, and that'd be fine. I don't think that's any problem. But so why don't we just go ahead and Commissioner Zork have you bring this back either on the 13th or 20th with a draft of what the letter should look like, and then we'll have a little bit more to work on and go from there.
And as part of that, if we could get the parameters of what that grant application is going to be submitting, so I have a better understanding of what our letter is supporting beyond just the letter, that would be fantastic.
There was information and frequently asked questions that were attached.
I got those, but it's just,
The
that's
application
what they're,
itself is an online application, but certainly we can print the questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
Jason? Oh, I'm sorry.
In essence, this is a letter of support for the grant application for them to award a grant for the construction and rehab of the facility. It's not necessarily, or my understanding is, deciding which programs would be offered or not. That would be part of the board and the organization. And I do agree, we don't want to have duplication of services, and neither do any of the providers. And I think those things would be reviewed as those things get moved a little further down the line. But right now, we're trying to come up with ways to come up with the capital to finish the conversion of the facility.
That's correct.
Great.
Jason?
And just to make sure staff is doing what the board wants, do you want staff to conduct any further review of the application or any of the things included in the program?
I think what I would recommend is that Commissioner Zork and Mr. Snelson work on something, and then before it comes to the board, to run it by Dylan or yourself and
Okay.
get your comments. And so when it comes to us, everybody's kind of weighed in on it, would be my recommendation.
And just generally, do we have a process for when people ask us for letters of support for these types of things? I mean, to me, it's different if a city or something like another government comes to us, but nonprofit or private group.
When nonprofits are requesting funding, we have a well-established process for those. On these, historically, they've just been an ad hoc situation. We can look at having a more formalized process if the board desires, and we can do additional vetting or whatever the board deems appropriate.
I was just curious. Thank you. That would be fantastic.
So this will be under item 14E2. Commissioner Zork will bring this back to the board with more detail, and I guess probably the 20th, because the deadline is tomorrow, so you'd probably want to shoot for the 20th. And I don't think we need any vote on that. I think we're good on consensus. Okay? All right. Thank you, Mr. Snelson. Appreciate you coming, and thank you, Commissioner
Thank you for
Zork.
the update on what you're doing.
So, public discussion items number 2, a request to speak from Nicholas Schaus regarding All Aboard Florida Brightline. Good morning, welcome. You can come up to either podium. Yeah, it'd be fine, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Your name and address for the
Both
record,
for the
please.
Legal department.
Always happy to have you, Nick.
I'm Nick Schaus, live in Sable Oak Drive, and thank you, the commission, for over 4 years and $3 million of support, which has kept All Aboard Florida Brightline from coming north. Thousands of your constituents here appreciate this support, and over the years, we have at least over 500 families that have donated themselves $600,000. This is just in Indian River County alone for the fight. The county's financial backing is a significant reason why people have donated, because they see you as a leader. I hope this continues. Sunday's newspaper reported Brightline's efforts to negotiate with the county. Grade crossing and the costs of maintenance is important, absolutely. But this is insignificant, we think, when compared to the potential losses of property value, fire, and ambulance delay, and overall county and community deterioration. To date, the county has spent about $20 for each citizen, $4 a year to keep the Category 3 hurricane Brightline out of our front and backyards. Yup, there are thousands of NIMBYs, many of whom own mobile homes within 50 feet of the tracks, and the potential 110-mile-an-hour, twice-hourly blast. From our southern border to Sebastian River, there are more than 750 houses and mobile homes located closer than 150 feet of the tracks. Please continue your good work and continue to reflect on the remarkable results you've had for 5 years. Put this in perspective. 5 years ago, when we started the campaign, it looked like a mountain. the President of the United States and his executive branch were all behind All Aboard Florida, as were Florida's 2 U.S. senators, 25 of 27 congressmen, our governor and his executive branches, and probably close to 20 million Florida residents. The Treasure Coast, and more particularly, this commission, has been and is the leader of our efforts. Brightline is not winning. More stations, which they're trying to do, won't increase their net income. Actually, it will probably decrease. It might do, agreeing to pay for more construction and operating costs does nothing for their bottom line. Their actions in the past 6 months bode well for our success. I see it as a white flag. We all look forward to a few weeks in Washington, D.C., the 27th, when there's a hearing. Oral arguments. But let's realize that our chance of winning is 50-50. Let's be realistic. And let's prepare for extra innings and overtime. Should we receive an adverse decision, please consider another allocation of $985,000 for an appeal. Of course, it depends on the facts which will unfold, but be ready, let's be ready financially. This amount would be less than 0.2% of the county's total expenditures, or, I figured out, $6.75 a person, several Big Macs. And if we didn't have those, it'd probably be better for our health. Stopping the high-speed train fits and conforms to the Indian River County's mission. Your mission statement is protecting and promoting general welfare of our residents and visitors and preserving and enhancing the quality of life of our community. Many thanks for what you've accomplished.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Schaus. Commissioner Slory.
Before Mr. Schaus sits down, first of all, I'd like to thank him and Susan Meal, who's here today. It's the grassroots movement, which I think has really been very important in driving this forward. I'm glad you're back from up north. I don't see why you go back there during the summer. You could have been working on All Aboard Florida for the last 6 months, but at least you're back. But I want to take this opportunity to mention something that happened just last Friday, and that was the issuance of the Florida Passenger Rail System Study put out by the OPAGA, which is a group from the state. I'd like to thank Senator Mayfield for helping make that a reality. And this is great reading. I mean, I would like to spend a lot of time, but the chairman will hit me if I go more than about 2 minutes. So I just want to point out a couple highlights. One, dealing with finance, and this certainly indicates what we've been saying for 5 years. There is no realistic chance of financial success. We now have a objective comparison with Tri-Rail, which is one of its great nearest competitors, and it's tough to sometimes understand the speak, but there's a nice chart that shows that Tri-Rail has a fare box revenue ratio of 15%, which means that for every dollar that's spent on Tri-Rail, 85% is a subsidy. And if you notice one of the footnotes here, it says that that's for just operating costs. So there's nothing for capital, nothing for debt, which I don't think Tri-Rail has, but it doesn't meet more than 80% of its expenditures with the 85-cent subsidy per dollar. And probably for us, even more important is in the safety section, it notes that Florida's severe injury rate is 1.5 times higher, and its fatality rate is 3.5 times higher than the national average for the evaluation period. And keep in mind that that's with Brightline just running from Miami to West Palm, where it's going slowly by comparison. We can expect that 3.5 time fatality rate to increase, unfortunately, once it starts going 110, 125 miles an hour. So again, everything we've been saying about finance seems to be correct. It can't succeed financially. And everything we've said about the safety problems is being borne out. And the third great thing about this is it indicates that the Florida Department of Transportation actually has a part to play in this. It's been sitting on the sidelines too long, and this will give both the legislature and local governments more of an ability to tell FDOT, listen, you've got to live up to what you say you believe in, that safety is our first priority. So again, thank you and all the grassroots people for all your efforts. And I want you, in the next 6 months to make up for your 6-month vacation.
Is that report on your website?
I don't know if it's on the website, but we can put it on the website. Be happy to do that.
Mr. Chairman, and before Mr. Schaus has a seat, just wanted to pass on one other piece of information. 2 meetings ago at the Regional Planning Council, I believe it's Commissioner Hal Valashay, who is a commissioner that I'd say is probably Brightline friendly, but he's been put on the board of Tri-Rail. He comes from the airline industry and the discussion of overcapacity when you throw in Tri-Rail, the new coastal link that they also want to add, the Amtrak on the route, and then Brightline. They're all trying to scavenger the same passenger, and there's not enough for everybody to go around. So I'm hoping that with his past experience in the airline industry, that he understands that you can't run things empty or at a loss, and he'll bring some reasonableness to some of those discussions as it goes forward. But that amount of capacity for that number of people just does not make any sense at all.
And just to Commissioner Solari, we have to, the OPAGA study was done for this coming session of our legislature in Tallahassee to act upon. And we can all hope that after today, the election and all this, we can ask our people there to put into legislation some of the recommendations of the OPAGA study. Thank you.
And I thought that both Dylan and Kate Cotner from our attorney's office were very excited when they read this, and it just sort of gave them that new, renewed energy to go ahead and push our legislators to do the right thing this session.
And also our finance committee, just remember, just a few Big Macs.
Thank you, Nick. Dylan, did you want to?
Yeah, just a couple things. One, I want to follow up on something Commissioner Solari talked about, some of the safety issues, but I think there was a chart in here that was really significant. It's something we've been pushing about, the safety concerns, and there was a chart that demonstrated that the grade crossings that Brightline will be on have more, it's a complicated thing to explain, but the number of crossings with one incident, with at least one safety incident, is the most in that section that Brightline will be traveling on, more than Tri-Rail, more than Sunrail, more than Amtrak, more than the Sunrail extension. So if you think about it, the crossings where most of the safety impacts, or the highest percentage of safety impacts are occurring, is actually the same set of tracks where Brightline will be running at their higher speeds. And I think that's a significant issue as we go forward and examine why this study is so important and the legislation that has been pushed in Tallahassee is so important. And I want to thank, as Commissioner Solari said, Senator Mayfield for pushing the efforts. Also, it's been great that we've had Representative Grawl pushing this issue. It's been so helpful that both of our legislators in Tallahassee have been working so hard on these issues related to Brightline, in addition to the other legislators in the Treasure Coast. So I just want to thank both of them and the other legislators in the Treasure Coast in recognizing what is significant this issue. And certainly Kate and I are, as Commissioner Solari stated, got an extra bounce in our step now, and we're looking forward to getting into the legislative session with this report.
Mr. Jason, or Commissioner Flynn?
I just have to butt in with one more thing, because during this whole process, I remember back in 2014, the then President, Mr. Reininger from All Aboard Florida, saying, safety is our main concern, but he would never have a conversation about safety. He'd just write in an article and say it. Well, on page 38, there's another chart here, and it talks about positive train control. And positive train control is basically, as I see it, the cutting edge of safety in railroad. And supposedly, all railroads should have it by 2018. But the chart notes CSX on their installation of positive train control, and in one of the boxes it says 100%, in another box 65%. So they're almost all the way there. FECR, which is the track upon which Brightline will be running, 0% in both boxes, 0%. They're not even thinking of having it ready for at least 2 more years. So I think that is one of the most objective points on safety, and what safety means for all aboard Florida that you can have. And I think it just shows that, once again, they've been incredibly disingenuous. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will now be quiet on this issue for today.
Commissioner Sori, you have the floor then. Jason, do you have something to add?
I just wanted to get clarification. There was discussion of placing the study on the county's website. I think it should be shared. We'd be glad to place something on the website. I want to make sure that it is fully a public document. I think it's a great document that talks about the safety and some of the cost implications. There is a little disclaimer at the beginning that mentions that some of this report may have sensitive information should be treated as confidential unless otherwise approved for release. So I think we should make sure that it's clear that this is a public document. I think there's a tremendous amount of public interest in this. I think it should be public. I don't see any reason it's not public. I think we need to make sure that's clear, and we should be able to share this with the public.
So, Jason, we will leave that to you and Dylan to decide that, and then as soon as you two are clear on what we can and can't post, I think the board would like to see you put it on our website.
If it's determined we can, we will definitely place it out there.
Okay.
I also found it interesting, Chairman, that what was advertised as about a year ago in the Brightline Ridership and Revenue Study, October 2017, Miami to Palm Beach, was bragged in here that 2018 they were going to have over 1 million riders. Well, a year later, it seems like Brightline's kind of backtracked a little bit on that. And now in this new study have dropped that number down to 360,000 riders. So clearly the economic realities have not played out as were predicted a year ago when they tried to sell their bonds.
And they still maintain that this is a private venture that doesn't need any government subsidy, which just seems odd.
Okay. Thank you all for your comments. We will move to public notice items. Commissioners, I think we can all go take a 30-minute break while Dylan reads this public notice item, but Dylan, if you're prepared, would you do the honors, please?
Yeah, I talked to Stan about this. He said he was actually adding additional languages during the meeting. So we have a notice of scheduled public hearing for November 20th, 2018. It is Indian River Land Trust, Inc.'s request to amend the comprehensive plan to redesignate plus or minus 11.59 acres located at the southeast corner of 79th Street and US Highway 1 from CI Commercial Industrial to M1 Medium Density Residential 1 up to 8 units per acre, and to rezone those plus or minus 11.59 acres from CL Limited Commercial District to RM6 Multifamily Residential District up to 6 units per acre, and simultaneously request by Schwerin Asset Advisors LLCs to amend the comprehensive plan to redesignate plus or minus 11.44 acres located at the northeast corner of 41st Street and US Highway 1 from M1 Medium Density Residential 1 up to 8 units per acre to CI Commercial Industrial, and to rezone plus or minus 0.83 acres of that property to OCR Office Commercial Residential District, and to rezone the remaining plus or minus 10.61 acres of that property from RM6 Multifamily Residential District up to 6 units per acre to CL Limited Commercial District. I'm sure there are a lot of people very excited about that public hearing, and that will be on November 20th, 2018. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. And Dylan, that is a quasi-judicial matter, I believe, so commissioners, just be aware if you have anyone that wants to discuss that, it is quasi-judicial. Moving on to county administrator matters, a resolution granting authority of operation authority for the Escambia County Housing Finance Authority to issue multifamily housing revenue bonds to finance a project in Indian River County known as Orange Blossom Village. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. We have before you today a request for a resolution granting operational authority for Escambia County Housing Authority to issue bonds for multifamily housing revenue bonds to finance a project to make improvements at Orange Blossom Village, which is a facility for elderly and special needs individuals just about a mile east of here, north and east of here. This is similar in scope to what was approved by the board recently for the Taylor Point Apartments. This is the first step in a process that they are considering this financing. If they do choose to move forward on this, a TEFRA hearing will be needed as the next step, but this just puts the wheels in progress to begin that process, to potentially fund this project. We have Helen Feinberg here in the audience representing the Escambia County Housing Authority. If the board has any questions that I can't answer, so she's here to bail me out if I need. And there's Helen waving to you. So with that said, these would not be an obligation or a liability of the county. It is simply the tax exempt status that would be approved, which is necessary as this project is within the limits of Indian River County. So no funding is required of the board, and staff recommends that the board adopt the resolution granting the area operation of authority.
Thank you, Jason. Commissioners, any questions of Jason? Any questions of the Escambia Authority representative that's here this morning? None? Okay, commissioners?
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Zork. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 4-0. Thank you for coming this morning. We move on to departmental matters under community development, a consideration of a request for 2 additional meetings of the Development Review and Permit Process Advisory Committee. Mr. Bowling, good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request from the Development Review Committee, and one of their mission-critical tasks was to streamline things. They didn't get around to streamlining public notice readings, but maybe someday we'll get there. But I actually have the shortest PowerPoint presentation that I've ever prepared. It is 1 slide.
Bob Keating will be very disappointed in you, Stan.
Well, and it still might be too long, but just a little bit of background. The Development Review and Permit Process Advisory Committee started meeting last October. They met 10 meetings, 10 monthly meetings, and they had their last meeting just a few weeks ago, and with their resolution that established them, they automatically sunsetted. They did get their mission-critical tasks of looking at permitting process, the development review process for site planning and so forth, and development review fees. So they really had a long list of accomplishments. You all have that in your backup. I know I sent that to you all a few weeks ago as well. And on November 20th, we'll be coming back to you all to present the development review fee update that the committee and staff both support. So some of those things are still ongoing. I think a lot of the accomplishments were really a combination of commitment from the members of the committee and the chairman, as well as staff, the administrator, department heads, deputy county attorney was at all those meetings. And I think there's good communication and some innovative ideas that we started putting into effect back in May, and they're working well. And it wasn't ideas that either side necessarily had, going into the process, but it was something that was creative and is working really well. Also, I've let the members know that staff has open doors. If people have ideas for process changes, a lot of times things can be done that aren't code-required changes, so it's things that we can handle at a staff level. In terms of the request itself, the committee has asked to hold, that the board authorize them to convene and hold 2 more meetings to bring that total to 12, as if they had a full year of meetings, once a month. And the primary reason is to address some topics that they identified at their last meeting. At the end of their last meeting, they would still like to discuss and have some final recommendations that staff could bring back to you all if they make recommendations on these. One would be some building permit items that one of the members wanted to get with staff and then present, if they had some, to present at a future meeting. Another is the idea of making a recommendation to the board on a policy of a cost-benefit analysis for any future changes that are made. One of the members brought up our planned development PD project, kind of public benefits, where we look at trade-offs between what the developer gets in terms of waivers and what the public gets in terms of benefits. There's some landscaping items. There's also an item for discussion of having an ongoing development industry type of committee, like the Development Review Committee or the former Professional Services Advisory Committee. And then one other item was a reconsideration of a littoral zone requirement recommendation the committee made in September. One of the members who's very interested in that issue couldn't actually be there for that meeting and wanted that to be discussed again. So those are the 6 items that they identified at the end of the last meeting as being the topics that they would like to discuss and pursue if they are granted 2 more meetings. Other thing that I pointed out in the report is, given kind of the holidays coming up and some of the schedules that the members have, if the board does grant additional meetings, we would wait till January to have a meeting, and then if a second meeting is needed, February. So that's kind of the time frame we think would be implemented. So those are the committee's requests, and staff has no objection to their requests.
So, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think Commissioner Solari might have a comment.
Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. And as short as it was, Stan, it was still too long. I mean, there's absolutely no good reason for having an ongoing development industry committee like that. I mean, this committee is already getting too much like they say government is. It's too big and too slow. I mean, it's amazing that they took a long summer vacation and now they want to start their Christmas break now. So that said, I can see the reasonableness of well, no, I can't. But I will go along with the idea of the 2 more meetings so that they could wrap up what they want. So I'll make the motion to allow the not quite sunsetted, but I guess with the time change, getting dark earlier bit of this committee, but put an absolutely drop-dead date of February 28th on it for the committee meetings, not you coming back to us. So that is my motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Solari, second by Commissioner Zork, to approve the extension of the committee until the ultimate sunsetting on February 28th, 2019. Under discussion, Commissioner Adams.
I just want to thank the volunteers and the members of the committee that have been doing a lot of work. I know some of those meetings have been very long and very arduous for everybody involved, and I know it takes time away from the work they're doing in the private sector. So I do appreciate their commitment and time that they put into that, and I support the motion.
Okay. Just the only comment I have, I'm fully supportive of everything except for item number 5, the ongoing committee. My concerns are a couple things. Is right now we're extremely shorthanded on our administrative staff in the office, and devoting more staff time to a monthly or whatever committee meeting, I'm not ready to go there. And I think secondly, and more importantly, we've just done this comprehensive 1.5-year review of everything. I think it's better to sit back and kind of let things play out for a year or 2, and let all these changes and see how it all moves forward. And then I think authorizing a committee with a short-term goal and sunsetting to tackle a specific issue is much more effective than just an ongoing committee that might be meeting every month just to have kind of a complaint session. So when they come back, I'm not going to be in favor of an ongoing committee. So I guess the only thing I just is tell the committee members, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on number 5 and concentrate on the other 5 points. With that, any other Commissioner Zork?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and not speaking for any of the committee members, I haven't spoke to them, but I think if the county agreed not to change any policies, procedures, design requirements, permit fees, they might not want to meet either. It's pardon me? I think we have to, whatever we do going forward, we have to have some mechanism that if we're going to change something or require something different, that we have to have a way of getting some type of input, whether it's through this or Treasure Coast Builders in St. Lucie and Martin County has a separate group in each county that kind of does something similar to that. Then they send a report and a representative to speak at meetings, and that may be that may be fine.
That's exactly the way it should work. I mean, that's what every other citizen does.
Right.
And we've been incredibly open and transparent here, and I believe that this is the way to be open and transparent, to let the private sector go, and, I mean, they can meet themselves and have these discussions, just like the Treasure Coast Builders Association. And we don't do anything, just impose it on people in the dark. We notice it. I mean, we had that long notice that Mr. Reingold. We love people to come and talk. We spent 3 hours on dogs a few weeks ago, and that's not unusual. So, I mean, we have never turned anyone away from coming. And again, I personally believe that committees too often are simply special interest groups, which are the new smoke-filled back rooms, because there are few enough people who come here, let alone those committees, which are basically filled by people or have their own enlightened self-interest. But the people who sit on those committees are the people who generally want something from government. I'm happy for them, people to come and want something from government, but do it in the most public possible way, a Board of County Commission committee meeting. And I think all of us talk with different developers regularly, so we're all incredibly accessible. This isn't like going up to Tallahassee. You know, so I welcome a dialogue with them regularly, but just keep on talking and take advantage of the public meetings. So again, I also find it interesting that almost every builder and developer I know, I thought was conservative and for limited government. And setting up another committee seems to be going in the opposite direction. So I think that we've got an appropriate process, and I would like to strengthen that process rather than go somewhere else.
And part two of that, sometimes people are glutton for punishment. I've taken the opportunity to go to St. Lucie County 3 times to watch their pre-app process work, and one Brevard County. And I don't know what is different with their procedure. One, how many people they put into a very small room, I think fosters getting things done quicker, because they'll put 20 staff people in a room that's made for 10, and then the applicants come in one at a time and they go through. But not that you don't have any spare time, Stan, but I don't know what enables them and their staff, the way they do their, it's sort of like a pre-app conference review discussion, a fluid dialogue. There's sometimes in some of the items that were submitted are very kind of basic, some are a little bit more detailed, and it may be that their staff is authorized to do maybe more things without having to go ask for permission based on how their ordinances may be. But if you ever had the time, and I'd be happy to go with you, I go down there and I ask Peter Jones, can I just sit in the room and watch? The process is just different. I think it has some definite benefits to some of the things that they do and how they're addressed. And when you look at how other places do something, you can learn from that. And I don't know what allows them to do that. Maybe that's a conversation with Peter Jones, because he's kind of the narrator of the group. But it does seem to work well. People go away with more smiles on their face than sometimes I don't know if the people here come out of the building is smiling after they go through some of our processes. But I think there's some things we could learn from. These were regarding just the initial, hey, can I do this? How could this work? And it's, a lot of people you can't ask them to spend a huge amount of money to find out, oh, I can't do that. So how do we find out if something is viable to a property owner or a business person earlier in the process with the least amount of money out of their pocket? They're all fine with paying it if they can do it, but they don't want to put a lot of huge money out on something. And huge can be different depending on the applicant. If it's a mom and pop, they got a small store and they want to add something, $5,000 is a big deal to them. So changing the things we did in the traffic study, that helps those types of applicants. But if you'd ever like to go down for an afternoon, don't have to stay for the whole thing. I'd kind of block out an hour and a half and just watch the varying type of applicants that come in and how it goes through. And it was, I think there may be some things we could look at. How does it function that way, and do we need to change something so we could do some things similar? And any other commissioners, it's just call Peter and say, hey, when's your next meeting? Can I come in and listen? And he's always been very accommodating.
Thank you, Commissioner Zork. Dylan, could you or Stan please be responsible for letting the committee members know that with this extension, they are still under the Sunshine Law and that they need to be aware of any discussions they have over the Christmas parties and whatnot, that because we're extending this committee, they're still under the Sunshine Law?
Absolutely, we'll be happy to work with Stan on that.
Okay, thank you. Deb, would you like to speak on the motion before us? Good morning, welcome.
Deb Robinson, the chairman of your committee, vice president of Laurel Homes, Laurel Builders. I'd like to just clear up a couple of issues that arose. Our two meetings that were gone this summer, one was at request of staff. And the holiday request is not because we're off having a time, it's because we're working 60-hour weeks trying to get people into their houses. This is our busiest time of the year. So it makes it difficult for us to donate our time when we're working to try and make a living. That being said, it's certainly at the pleasure of the commission. If you don't want the professionals in the community to tell you how your decisions are going to impact the community and our economy, then we certainly understand. If you choose to have us come back for 2 months, we'll be glad to address whatever we can. We certainly took a great deal of time away from our businesses, not only to do this, but to research it and to read about it, and to provide you with the best advice that we could from the perspective of our industries. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Deb, I think as Commissioner Adams mentioned, we do appreciate the time and effort you all have put into this.
And if I could add from staff.
There is one other thing I wanted to mention, and that is this. It makes it incumbent upon us to daily watch what happens between staff and the commission to find out if there's something that's going to impact our industry. If there is no communication, if there is no pathway for communication, which was the absolute intent of the Professional Services Advisory Committee, was to put the professionals in our industry together with staff to make sure that by the time it got to the commissioners, it was something that was crafted that would work well for the entire community. It is not self-serving. It is not... Certainly there are people who are going to hope that their businesses are going to be protected from what happens. But the very next things that I see coming on the agenda are information about changing impact fees. Gee, gosh, this is the first I've heard of it. So that's an exact example of where we have no idea. I cannot work full-time, 60-hour weeks, and keep track of everything that y'all decide to do. Nor should I have to, because I elect my officials to represent me too. So if you don't have our side from our industry's perspective, how on earth could you ever do that? Because y'all aren't in this industry. And I think that affects not just us, but other areas of the community as well. So you can go back to what the good old days was a closed door when the public wasn't involved, when all the decisions were made behind closed doors. Once we started getting committees, it got out in the open. So we're going back. The good old days is what we're going back to.
Commissioner Story.
I think there's one way of addressing that, because we have different areas in the county that have felt in the past that we haven't had the right type of communication channels. One area that's familiar to me is Gifford. Gifford sometimes felt that they didn't know what was going on in the county. But we've remedied that, I think, to a large extent by whenever there's something that's happening in the Gifford community, we notify people on an email list that want to know about it. We had one of those go out in the last week. And it's easy enough for people in the building industry, if they want a more direct line to what is going on in the county, to at the very beginning in the process, send the email out to say that, in this case, impact fees are starting to be studied for the utility department. You know, as soon as the board authorized that to happen, we could have put that notice out. I think everybody here would be very happy to do that and to let people know at the very beginning of that process and any process what we're doing. And then they can begin to have that feedback. That might be a good time for the developers to get together and set up their own group to say, this is something we need to weigh in on and ask to be part of the process. That, I have found, has worked wonderfully for the Board of County Commissioners and the Gifford community, and that is the type of thing I would have hoped that the existing committee would have come up with. And if there are other ways to increase the communication, I think this board, again, has been absolutely forthcoming and pushing that type of thing. We certainly don't want anybody who wants to be part of the process to be left out of the process. So, I mean, I think that, as opposed to a new committee, I think that would be a good thing for you to discuss in the last meeting and have a short conversation on what's the best way to actually find out at the soonest possible point what the staff might be doing that might impact us going forward.
Well, I'm not sure how rational it would be for staff to email every single builder, developer, contractor, real estate person, everybody in our industry, which is beyond government, the largest industry in Indian River County, about every potential change, but that's fine with me.
It's those
one
people
email.
who want to be on the email list, not
Well,
everyone. I mean, I don't believe that we email everybody in Gifford, which has 4,000 or 5,000 people. I would think that email list is a couple hundred of those people who are interested.
I think really what the conversation is that the committee has the feeling that the work that they're doing is not wanted or needed when we ask them to do it, and they're asking us to help provide information to them on an ongoing basis, which really is our job as elected officials. It's not our job necessarily to wait for somebody and come and ask us what we're up to. It's our job to convey to the public what we are up to, so when we do make decisions, we are not making the wrong decisions and we're getting the input that we need to make the proper decisions. And I think that's the concern amongst the community. I have heard it not just from this group, but from other small groups within the community, that we are making decisions on grants or projects and we're not getting or reaching out to those subgroups to make those grants and projects or policies more robust and more comprehensive and more across the board. We as government, and I don't think that this is unique to Indian River County, I think it's unique to all government, I think it's a total government problem, tend to be very siloed in what it is we're doing. If this is a community development problem, we are solely in community development. We're not reaching out to utilities, to public works, or to those other groups. And I'm not saying that I'm just using that as an example, Stan. But the same can be said for, other applications and things that we're doing. And I think that is the concern, is it seems that there is an attitude that people need to come to us. And I think the reverse is opposite. The reverse is true. We need to be going to people and we need to be reaching out. When I have issues that I know are coming up on my horizon, I make an effort to reach out to the stakeholders to make sure they're okay with what's going on. Is there any input they want to provide? Because the last thing I want is to get to a commission meeting and have 7,000 people in here that are on the complete opposite side, when it really would have been much better to reach out to them ahead of time and find out what those concerns are so we could craft those policies and make those decisions much better, so we're not having 3-hour meetings on one item. So I think that's kind of the concern that I've heard from this committee and from other groups amongst the community, that while, yes, we do provide information, we do provide notice, we do provide agenda with backup, the average person on the street doesn't really understand how to access that or even what that language means. I could give that ordinance to my neighbor and ask them to read it, and they would have no idea what it means, because we live it all the time, we understand it, but the average person doesn't, and they are also trying to do their job. This is our job, so I feel like we need to go the extra mile to get that input from the public to make our decisions more robust. And I think that's just the bottom line of where this conversation is. So how do we make that easier? An email group is fantastic. That's a good way to do it, but it's also incumbent upon us to reach out and say, this keeps coming up as a lack of information. How can we help you get the information? How can we interpret that, or how can we provide that in a way that's going to allow you to give the input so it's not happening the day after the decision's made? Once, you know, by then it can't be, it's much harder to fix. So I think it's incumbent on both sides to be more open and transparent, but I also think we need to understand that while this is our job and we live it on a daily basis, most people in our community don't, so they're unaware of what's going on regularly.
Is there anything else for me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Deb. Good morning, welcome.
Joseph Paladin, I'm the president of Black Swan Consulting, also the president of Land Coast Building. I'm a builder and a developer in the area, but besides that, I'm vice chairman of that committee that we're speaking of right now. I support the motion that you brought forward. I'm behind it. And one thing I'd like to bring to your attention, all the things that our committee has recommended and staff has brought to you was voted on unanimously by everybody in the committee. Not majority, but unanimous. So all the things that Stan is going to be bringing forward, all the things we voted on, we not only had support of staff, but everybody on our committee, which is from different facets of business in the county. The couple of things we have left to discuss is not in that category, so we feel that with those extra 2 meetings, we'll be able to bring that back to you with staff's approval and with unanimous support. So I think those extra 2 meetings are important. And as far as what Commissioner Zork brought up about St. Lucie County, I've been working in St. Lucie County for 30 years. I was the original developer of St. Lucie West, which was 1987. I'm very familiar with the pre-app meetings in St. Lucie County and also the city of Fort Pierce. It's a different criteria there. The home rule is a little bit different, much like Palm Bay and Brevard County. I've worked in Brevard and Palm Bay also. And also the utilities department in St. Lucie County and the city of Fort Pierce is a separate entity as far as our impact fees, approvals, going forward. So it's a different criteria. But I've been in those pre-app meetings, not as an observer, but as a participant on projects. I'm in some pre-app meetings right now, as a matter of fact. And I can say that I don't think that anybody, any county I've worked in, has anything over us, basically. I think that Indian River County does a great job. You guys have always left your doors open for me or any other developer, basically. So I don't have any complaints whatsoever. And I support your motion. I think the extra 2 meetings will let us finish up unfinished business. I think that should be for unfinished business and not new business, by the way. So I support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paladin. Anyone else from the audience wishes to speak on the motion before us? So we have a motion from Commissioner Slaughter, second by Commissioner Zork, to extend the Development Review and Permit Process Advisory Committee to February 28th, 2019. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say from staff standpoint, I think the Development Review Committee has been a good process. We've been able to work between staff and the committee, and everybody brings their own perspective to that. So I want to say, whereas these committees do take a significant amount of staff time, we're in recognition of the amount of time that has been committed by the volunteer members of the committee, and we're thankful for the work that has been done there. I think we've done good work there. Staff is supportive of the extension of 2 additional meetings. We do believe that it's good to have a finite amount of meetings, but staff is supportive of the additional meetings and thankful for the work of all of the folks that have put into the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Commissioners, all those in favor of the motion signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 4-0. Next up is Departmental Matters Utilities. I'm going to skip over that, and we'll go to the County Attorney Matters. The Escambia County Housing Finance Authority Area of Operation Resolution. Mr. Reingold, please.
Thank you very much. In 2013, the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners approved a resolution consenting to Indian River County Housing Finance Authority issuance of single-family mortgage revenue bonds within Indian River County. These bonds were used to fund its single-family mortgage loan program. The authority used the bonds to provide financing and down payment assistance to first-time home buyers throughout a 13-county area, which included Indian River County. The authority is now seeking an area of operation resolution to continue its mortgage loan program through the issuance of new revenue bonds. This program will be used to assist, again, first-time home buyers in Escambia County, Indian River County, and actually now 17 other counties throughout the state of Florida. Please be aware that due to changes in federal law, there will no longer need to be a TEFRA hearing here in Indian River County as part of this item. Additionally, the issuance of the bonds will not require any of Indian River County's private activity bond allocation. County Attorney's Office simply recommends approval of the Area of Operation Authority resolution and authorize the chair to execute the resolution. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair. I know Helen is still here on behalf of the Escambia County folks. If there are any questions from the board specifically about the program.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions of Dylan? Commissioner Solari.
I've got some. I don't know if it would be Dylan or the representative for the Escambia County Housing Finance Authority. The first question is, I just wanted to get clarity on, good morning, thank you for showing up, on how much the first-time home buyer can actually finance. I'm not sure if it's 100% of the total, 100% of the total plus the second mortgage that's mentioned of $7,500. So I'd like to, if I could, a little clarity on that.
Sure. The guidelines for loan to value and the borrowing amount is governed by the specific program. There's several programs that are allowable, and that is FHA loans, VA loans, and Freddie Mac conventional loans. So it will be, in their guidelines, the maximum amount of debt. So, generally the home buyers do have some, they are paying some of the cost to buy the home. It's not 100% financing.
So could you be more specific with some of those amounts or examples of those amounts?
I don't have a closing statement with me, but I think the FHA loans are approximately 98% loan to value. Closing costs at the present time, probably run, well, it just depends on the price of the home too. So if you had a $150,000 home, that might be, $5,000. I'm just talking in broad estimates here.
Okay, because on some of the information that we do have, it says the down payment assistance offered with FHA-insured first mortgage loans can provide up to 100% of the home buyer's cash to close. And then there's another paragraph which says that the authority will provide a 0% non-amortizing 30-year deferred second mortgage up to $7,500 to be used exclusively with the 5.375% mortgage, which is not forgivable, blah, blah, blah. So it looks to me, I'm not even sure if you can't end up getting more than 100% of the home value plus closing costs. It seems like that's certainly possible.
I think it is possible, if you have a low enough home price. But no one would ever get more, nobody gets cash back under the program.
I understand that, but it looks like you can get 100% of the loan plus all the costs to close.
I would say it is possible, if the home is not overly expensive. It's going to depend because for the purchase price limits go over $200,000, $271,000. But not many folks in this category of 100% of median or 115% of median can afford that. But it is, the amount of cash out of pocket is going to depend on the loan amount because the costs are a percentage of those. But if it's less than a $100,000 home, the $7,500 second mortgage is a greater percentage of the cost of the home, and I do agree it could, it could fund the cost of the home plus the closing costs.
Okay. What worries me a little bit about this is it reminds back of more of the Great Recession when you had all these loans where it covered 100% or 95% of the value of the home. Then we had a recession and home prices dropped and all these people were underwater. And it looks almost like we're setting up, I've noticed that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have also seemed to be loosening up requirements at the same time. So I'm just wondering if we're not setting ourselves up for the same type of problem we had in 2008, 2009, 2010. And at the end of the day, I have to wonder if, once we hit the next recession, we'll really have been found to be helping these people. So that's...
And that is, that is a possibility if we hit a recession and home prices decline. I know in the recession, a lot of the problems were the types of loan products. They were balloons and teaser adjustable rate mortgages. But, everyday folks were harmed as well. So the program is designed to, facilitate home ownership. I do think that after the financial meltdown, they tightened up credit underwriting requirements for credit scores, and they require a lot of documentation on homeowner income. They look at tax returns for 3 years to verify income, because it is an IRS program governed under the IRS. So there are checks and balances, but at the end of the day, buying a home, there are risks involved, but it's meant to, promote homeownership.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, your pleasure, commissioners.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Zork. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak to the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
That motion carries 3-1 with Commissioner Solari opposed. Commissioners, that concludes all of the agenda except for the utility services, 3 items. As we discussed earlier this morning, and does not look like Commissioner Flesher will be able to join us. So with that, is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to speak to the utility services item 1, the surface water supply? Okay, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the uniform septic to sewer policy item 2 under utilities? And is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to item 3, the comprehensive water, wastewater, and reclaimed water rate study and water and sewer impact fee recommendations? Okay, seeing none. Commissioners, what I would recommend we do out of respect to Commissioner Flesher's unavoidable absence and his request to participate in these items is that we table these items until the meeting of the 13th.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
we'll need a motion to do so.
I'd be very happy to move that we table the 3 items until the meeting of the 13th.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Solari, second by Commissioner Zork. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 4-0, and that is for items 12G1, 12G2, and 12G3 for the clerk. And Commissioners, I believe that concludes the agenda. To our audience, if you have not voted yet, please get out and vote. Today is Election Day, and as a Democratic republic, it is your duty and obligation to vote. So please take advantage of today and get out and vote. And Mr. Reingold.
Before we conclude, I just wanted to note that we have Madison from Indian River Charter High School today. She is part of an assignment at work, had to job shadow somebody. For some reason, she chose me to job shadow. So she is here in the board meeting today, watching along, and she'll be with me all day, learning what it is to be a county attorney.
Great. Well, welcome, Madison. Enjoy it. Now, if you really want to see somebody work, you got to shadow Kate, and don't worry about Dylan. Thank you. Commissioners, anything else for the public good? Seeing none, we are adjourned.